When we look at success, we tend to only see the end picture, the glam, the shout, the appreciation. But we miss to see the sacrifice it took for one to reach at their destined plateau. I'm Treasure Colombe, and in the process, we're going to sit with professionals and successful individuals from different industries to look deeper in their journey, to unravel the wisdom, the lesson. Good evening, everybody. I'm hoping you are all doing wonderful. It is once again your host, Treasure Colombe. And as usual, I am so excited and delighted to be with you on this platform of The Process. I know I say it every week, but we are so humble that you take the time out of your day, whether you're watching this in your car, on your tablet, on your television, to come and to tune into this program, because we believe that this program is inspiring, it's impacting, it's transforming, and it's equipping you for that process that you are on in this season of your life. Once again, we are so honored to have an amazing guest in our midst this evening. This one is going to be very special as it is. So listen, if you haven't had a chance yet, I want you to subscribe to the page. I want you to like the video. Hit that little bell so that whenever there's a video dropping, you are already prepared for it. It is a great honor for me and a great privilege to have the guest that we are about to have today. It is a man that I admire very, very much, that I follow very closely, but from afar, that has, according to me, and you're about to find out very soon, so much wisdom, a depth of knowledge, and really a lot to share that I believe this generation and the generation to come need to receive. So I want to welcome this evening on our platform, Mr. Frederick Bruce Owens, affectionately known as Coach Fred. How you doing, sir? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Pastor. I'm doing really good. Blessed as always.
Yes, and it is such an honor that you've given us this time today. I know you got a really busy schedule, so I'm so glad that you've given us a chance to have this amazing conversation that I believe we're about to have. And before we get going, I just want you to take a moment, maybe tell the folks. I'm going to get a chance at the end of the day to really give you your flowers. But right now, if you would just tell the people a little bit, who is Coach Fred, who's Mr. Frederick, so that they know who they're speaking with tonight.
Ooh, that's a tough one for me because I'm not good at talking about myself. But to know me is to know where I come from, which is a small town in North Carolina, Henderson, North Carolina, raised by a single mom who had 10 kids, and all girls and myself. Graduated high school and moved on to the military, and from there tried university. And then I got into the field of acting and singing and dancing and doing voice acting. Um, God, I'm so uncomfortable talking about myself. Otherwise, I'm just right now I'm doing coaching youth basketball and trying to help young men achieve their goals. And that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. How would you like to you tonight, sir? Should I say Mr. Frederick? Should I say Coach Fred?
Coach Fred is fine.
Coach Fred is fine. Yeah. Thank you so much, Coach Fred. And again, you can see right off the bat the humility that Coach Fred has. So I want to take this moment before we even get into our topic. I truly do believe it is important to give honor where honor is due. So I want to make sure that I do that today. As Coach Fred mentioned, he is now coaching. He coaches now in Hamilton currently with the Haldeman Huskies as a coach, as a trainer, as a developer. And Coach Fred really has a long history of coaching that dates all the way back to the 80s in the United States. coaching many different groups. He was head coach of Calvary Christian School in New Jersey. He coached in California as well, has won many, many championships since moving here, coached at Blessed Sacrament, for those who know Hamilton well, St. Mary's Secondary School as well. He was also one of the coach and still one of the coach and consultant for UPlay Canada Elite. So if you know the Shea Gilgis Alexanders of the world, then you know exactly what that program is. He's helped to groom many of those young men that you see today playing in the NBA and professionally, or that are training, that are successful in many different areas, not just in the sports field, but some of them are video creators, some of them are lawyers, some of them are real estate agents, some of them are doctors. So he has really played a part in grooming many of the men that came out of Hamilton, came out of Southern Ontario, and that are excelling in many areas. He also mentioned that he did acting and singing. And when I looked at this resume, wow. I was like, I always know you post some things here and there, but I was not aware of such a rich resume. I'm just going to mention a couple of things in his resume. It is so lengthy. If I'm to go through all of it, we'll be here all night. But I just want to point out a couple of things because I want y'all to understand the wealth of wisdom and experience that we are graced to have this evening for acting. One of my favorite movies, and I didn't know it until he posted it later, but Coach Fred appeared in the movie Hitch as a security guard. If you ever watched it, when they cross the bridge, they go, I believe it was in a museum or so. Larry, he's in the movie Hitch with Will Smith. He's been in Law and Order, SVU. Who does not love Law and Order? Come on. He's been in All My Children, the soap opera, One Life to Live, the soap opera. I can remember coming back from school and soap operas was already plugged in there at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Everybody One Life to Live, and not knowing that all this time I was watching Coach Fred. He was also in NY Undercover. He's also been in Broadway, as he mentioned, the singing portion, Smokey Joe's Cafe, Broadway, Jesus Christ Superstar, Broadway as well. Part of the Dreamgirls Broadway. My goodness, Coach, so amazing. And as well, The Wiz. If you know The Wiz, that's a big, big Broadway that he was also part of, playing the lion in that one, and has won some amazing awards over the year. I didn't know this, but Coach Fred is a Grammy Award winner for Best Broadway Album for Smokey Joe Cafe back in '95. He's an NAACP Award winner for Featured Male Artist as well for Smokey Joe's Cafe. Has won an Adelco Award, a Mayor's Award, and a Community Service Award for the wonderful coaching that he does. So I just wanted to take time, Coach, to really highlight a lot of those success, because like I said, I believe it's important to give honor where honor is due, and we are so privileged to have you. Coach, one of the reasons I wanted to have you come on our platform today on The Process was to talk on a topic that I believe has become controversial in today's society, and that I believe has also begun to impact a lot of young men and a lot of men in general. And that's really on the topic of manhood. We are looking in families today. Families are divided, and often because the man is absent inside of the home. Families that are together, we're finding that things are not in order. Young men are growing without certain understanding, without certain tools that will enable them to excel in today's world with all of the challenges. So I thought of it being very important to have a conversation on this topic, to be able to provide a wealth of knowledge to those who are following us. And really, I want to start right from the basic, asking really my first question. When talking about a man, it's such a broad topic, but for you, sir, what does it mean when we're talking about being a good man? What is a good man?
Um, Personally, for me, my first example of manhood would have been my grandfather. I was not raised with a father who was present, so my grandfather was the first example of what I saw as a man. He was an honorable person. Um, He was very responsible, very accountable. He was a man of high integrity. Um, he was a man who, if he saw a good fight, he would get in it. And I don't mean physically fight, but I was raised during the civil rights era. So a lot of times there would be marches and things that would be taking place. He was very vocal and he was very out front in terms of standing up to make change for black people at that time. And so a great part of that is a huge part of who I am. Um, I love being a man. That may not make sense to anybody but another man. But where I come from, being a man is a really big thing. When I was in grade nine, one of my teachers asked what I wanted to be when I got older, and I said, I want to be a man because that's a big deal where I come from. And unlike, I wouldn't say unlike today because there are men that exist, but when I was growing up, they were more upfront. Um, Men took care of their families. Men, I mean, I'm saying this even though I said my father was not absent. I mean, my father was absent. My father always took care of us. He just, at that time, I guess he wasn't, mature enough to handle a family. Maybe I don't know what the situation was. I never questioned it. All I know is that whenever I needed anything, we always had it available. So even when the father wasn't present, his his presence was always there. Um, Being raised in the church played a huge part in how I handle myself as a man. Um, Almost everything that I've ever done in my life was based on a lot of the scripture that I learned as a child. Um, you hear people say, raise a child in the way that they should go and they will never, depart from it. I'm a living witness to that because all of the things that were instilled in me as a child spiritually were those things that always kept me focused and kept me centered, as a young man and even as a grown man. It always brought me back when I would go wayward.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I was always taking responsibility and holding myself accountable for the mistakes and the things that I did in life. And I wouldn't have been able to do that with the conscious mind that I did had I not valued being a man in the way that I did, and the way that I do.
And that's amazing, Coach. And I hear you already mentioning some qualities there around responsibility, accountability, provision, and so forth. And one of the things I'm finding in today in our society is the process in developing those qualities are really scarce in the sense of many young men growing up, many young boys growing up, many men, do not know how to go about developing that sense of responsibility, developing that sense of accountability. For you, how do you think one begins to build some of those qualities that makes them to become, a successful man in today's society? How does one develop some of these qualities that you mentioned to becoming a good man?
Well, I think it starts in the family. As a child, a lot of things were instilled in me. A lot of seeds were planted inside of me. So, this life, this thing that we call life, just as your show is called, it's a process. Um, People see who I am now and they say, you're a really good man. But it took a lot of things for me to go through to be the good man that I am now.
Mm,
Um, I was always a good person because my mother raised me to be a good person. But there was no one in the household other than my grandfather to teach me how to be a good man. My mother couldn't teach me how to be a man. She could only teach me how to be a good person. So I was a good person before I was ever a good man because I hadn't gotten to that point yet. Um, but there's a developmental side of it. Once
mhm,
you get past your own ego, you allow yourself, I think, to grow properly because you start to embrace those things that you've been taught and you get to a certain age and you go, oh, so that's what my grandfather meant. That's what, I had a lot of men in my life who were strategically set in place to act as mentors for me. So when people see me now and they say, "You're a great mentor," I had great examples of that. And again, that's one of those things as a child, when you see examples of something, you know how to follow it properly. And I saw examples of men. I mean, really, really strong, good men. I saw examples of it all throughout my life. So even though my father was not present, um, I wasn't missing out on the growth part of it because there were men who always kept me in check. And I called them my checkmate Charlies. All of them were there in place. And it all started with my grandfather, who was a mountain of a man. So I knew that he did not play. And so when he would say, do something, he means do it now, not do it when you feel like it, do it now.
And why do you think today that village of people who are willing to kind of take on, right? Because I hear the same thing when I think about my life. I can pinpoint, older brothers. I can pinpoint, uncles. I can pinpoint folks in the
Hmm.
community. I remember, back in Africa more so, not so much here, but I remember back in Africa, if you got in trouble at school or you did something wrong while you were outside in the community, before you got home, you were already
Oh, I
you
know. Hmm.
you were already reprimanded before you got home. So by the
That's
time you
right.
were home, that was whooping number six or something because
Hmm.
the uncle that saw you, the elder in the community that saw you around the corner, everybody was taking on that responsibility. What do you think are some of the hindrances in today's society in kind of cultivating that? Because now it seems as if it's like everybody fend for themselves. Why do you think it's that way?
Well, you just said something huge. Everybody's fending for themselves. But we grew up in a community, just like you. If I did something away from the house, by the time I got home, everybody knew about it because there were eyes and ears in the community who was always looking out for us. So you see, parents now, they don't want people to chastise and reprimand their kids. They just don't want it, and I don't know the reason why. Most of them don't have a problem when I do it, but I'm doing it in love for the child, and they get that part. But I don't think they think that everyone is going to love and care for their children, and I think that means more to them than anything. Whatever I do with them, I make sure to provide a safe environment for them. They can come to me and we talk about an array of things. I want them to know that there are people out here who do care. And I'm a man, I'm an elder in the village, and I care a great deal about these kids. I don't want to see them wallowing in mediocrity. I want them to fulfill their greatest potential of what God has given them and gifted them to do. And so parents see that with me, so they don't have a problem with me being that to their children. But I do think that we are in a generation when I was on the bus one day and this little boy was really being disrespectful to his mom. And I didn't say anything at first. I just wanted to see how it was going to play out. And I mean, he was being really disrespectful to his mother. He was like 9 or 10 years old, and she wasn't controlling the situation. And so, as a man, I took over the situation, and I mean, I really got up in his chest. And his mother was uncomfortable with it. She was like, I really wish you wouldn't go up on my son like that. And I'm like, this is the problem with this boy. One thing I've learned about kids, two things kids value if you just give it to them, discipline and structure. They love those things. We just have to be that for them. But a lot of times you see the parents, because maybe they fall short somewhere, they feel like they want to be liked by their kids more than respected by their kids. Anybody that I coach, all these kids that know me, they know I don't care if you love me. I mean, even if you like me, but you have to respect me. I don't need 14, 15-year-old friends anyway. So I don't care if you like me. But you're going to respect me. And that's a part of being a man, respecting people. That's a huge part of being a man. So the community has forgotten what we were initially designed for. The community is what raises the child. And so when I look at a lot of it, I keep these young men in prayer just like I do my own children. Um, any level of it. that you
Hmm.
see with these kids now. My heart goes out to them because when, like I say, when I was growing up, men kept us in check.
Hmm.
These men now, they're so um, hell bent on, I want to be a real one to these young men. I'm not
Hmm.
interested in all that. I want to be an example to these men. I don't fear the word mentor. I don't feel the word role model. I welcome those things because those are the things that changed my life. Those
Hmm.
are the thing. Those were the things that were instrumental to me achieving what I did. Was there were people who were there who supported me, who gave me great counsel and great guidance, and those places that I wanted to go, it was easier for me to go because I had a support base behind me that said, "Go ahead on, young fella, do it, do whatever you need to do. If you fall, we got your back." And so, therefore, I didn't have a problem with taking risks with anything
Yeah.
because I had people standing behind me.
Hmm.
So failure didn't mean anything to me.
Right. It's a part of the process in itself.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And that is so true. And you're right, Coach. I believe we need such a community. We need that sense of community back when it comes to raising these young boys into young men, and for them to be successful in society today. And as you're mentioning even your journey, and you're talking about. I'm seeking for these kids to respect me and not necessarily love me, and the process of understanding that I'm going to succeed because there's a group of people behind me. Right there, I hear discipline. I hear hard work. I hear determination. All tools that I believe are so essential, for a young boy to become a man and to become successful in today's society. Could you talk about the importance of discipline, the importance of hard work when it comes to building one's character, and how necessary that is if we are going to become what we want to be and supposed to be as men?
Well, hard work was always second nature for me because we were raised in a family where men had to work. Um, you look at the scripture, and here's another one of those scriptures that always stayed with me. Thessalonians, if a man don't work, he don't eat. you know, um, we always heard this growing up. If a man don't work, then he don't eat. As
Mhm.
simple as that. And I see a lot of with these kids, the numbers of achieving their goals is so low that if you just take time to look at the numbers, you would go, why would anybody even want to pursue that? Where
Mhm.
less than 1% of a whole group of somebody is only going to make it to this one job, but
Mhm.
everybody is pursuing it. You
Mhm.
see, um, so what are you doing to separate yourself to make yourself greater than the next person so that someone can take a chance and invest a scholarship into you and give you that opportunity to get to the ultimate goal, which for some of these kids and most of them, they all want to go to the NBA.
Mhm.
They all want to go to the NBA. And I tell them all the time, you're not ready for the amount of work you're going to have to put in to go to the NBA
Right.
because I'm almost basically begging you now to get in the gym. Great players are
Yeah.
always where they need to be great. I'm a
Mhm.
firm believer in that. So you look at players like Shea, you look at players like even Michael Jordan, LeBron James, the great players. You knew where to find them. They were not hard to find. They were always in the gym. They were working on their game. They were working on their craft because they had spoken it out loud that they wanted to be great at what they do. And so they didn't have a problem with an elite work ethic, and I tell people as much as I can because I don't take any credit um, for Shea's success because I wasn't his coach. You had Kendall Knight was his coach, Dwayne Washington was his coach. I just happened to be a coach at UPlay at the time, and during the summer, I would run camps, and that's where I would see Shea. So, but they were the ones who basically developed his skill set. So, but I know that there were mornings when I would go to the Y gym, 5 o'clock in the morning, and there was Kendall Knight and
Mhm.
Shay already in the gym in full sweat at
Yeah.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
So I tell people when you see where he is now, it's not by accident. It's by design. That young man put in the work. He never complained. He was coachable. If you got on them about something, it was always just yes, coach, or no, coach, and that was it. That was the end of that. The discipline part comes on those mornings when I would see them at the gym and it would be snowing outside or it would be raining outside. Who really wants to get up and go? It's not even a job because you're not getting paid to do this,
Yeah.
but you have to get up and do it because it's a part of that process of
Hmm.
you being successful. And
Hmm.
there he was. And there he was. And then he would go to school. And then you would see him after school in the gym or later on after he was done with practice. Man, this young man was always working. So when you see where they end up being, you have to know they've been through something to get there. Every great man has been through something. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah.
And so when I look at this young man, and I tell people all the time, when you see somebody somewhere, y'all think it's just, man, they were lucky. Dude, and luck ain't had nothing to do with this.
Right.
Luck
Right.
had, the rabbit's foot and all of the rabbit's foot was so lucky the rabbit would have it. That's what my grandfather used to say. So when you see what these kids are doing, that work ethic, people look at what I do, and I go back to grade 7, which was the first year that they integrated schools where I come from. And my first white teacher asked me what I wanted to be. And I said I wanted to be a Broadway singer and I wanted to do film and TV.
Mm.
And she laughed so hard. She was like, she threw the N word and said, "There no on Broadway." And
Hmm.
she just got the greatest laugh out of it. But all I know is my grandparents had told me that there's nothing in this world I couldn't do if I
Right.
was willing to put in the work. And
Hmm.
so while she was laughing, I was already taking voice lessons and drama lessons and all this kind of stuff. So while you were laughing, I was working.
Yeah.
And so when I did finally make it to Broadway, she was one of the first people that was in the newspaper saying, "Oh, I knew he was going to be great. He had such a beautiful instrument," and I didn't even address it. But you didn't know anything. You
Right.
tried to kill. You tried to kill my dream.
Hmm.
But the seed had already been planted that
Hmm.
I could be as great as I was willing to work for. So
Yeah.
say whatever you need to say. I
Hmm.
was always valid. I was already validated. Already confirmed. Sorry, bud. You couldn't dent this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was willing to put in all the work. So when you look at people who are in the industry, um, as such as myself at that time, I can't tell you how many shows I've done where I didn't get paid, where people, gypped me out of money.
Hmm.
We never talk about those kinds of things. All we talk about, or all people see, is where we are, where we end up. But there are a lot of things that go along with it. Man, there's some stick to itness that goes
Yeah.
along with this thing. And you're doing a show that, you got 3 kids that you're trying to raise. And this
Hmm.
show is rehearsal process is taking like 8 or 9 hours out of your day, but you're
Hmm.
not getting paid. So your family thinks you're crazy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I listened to the podcast yesterday with LeBron, and he talked about being great. He said one of the things about being great, the sacrifices you have to make when it comes to your family. Man,
Right.
that thing hit home because I know that all too well.
Yeah, and that is so true. And I see today's individuals and young men. They just want to appear right. They want to have the big car, the chain, right. They want to have the image that shows success, that shows that they're strong. You'll see them in the weight room, pumping all these heavy weights. They just want things to look right, but not understanding that there's a depth in it, right?
Hmm.
There's depth in it, that there's much, much more work that needs to be done, like you're talking about, from a sacrificial standpoint, from a determination, from just almost an obsession to not being mediocre. I remember when I was young, one of the statement that was kind of said to me and it stuck to me, and it's really at the basis of a lot of the things that I do today. It was JADE, and it stands for just average doesn't exist.
I remember
And
the speech you gave to the kids. I never
yeah,
forgot that word, Jade.
yes,
Hmm.
sir. And it was that piece right there from another man who had succeeded, who gave me that wealth of knowledge that really stuck with me, understanding that it's not about having an appearance of something that's great, but that there needs to be a level of sacrifice, there needs to be a level of work, there needs to be a level of determination that you have to do. And I really think of it more so also because there's always somebody else watching you, right? There's always
Yep.
somebody behind that is watching you.
And
You
it's
you might
usually your competition.
right, and it's using you, and so when you either cross your arms or you don't meet that standard, then those people will fail their opportunity from being able to do what they're supposed to do, right? And then there's
Hmm.
really much more to it. And coach, we're seeing today a lot of young men get to a certain point of success and then collapse. We're seeing them have certain opportunities presented to them and not be able to live it through. We're seeing them enter into certain roles into their life and not successfully being able to handle those places. And not just from a basketball standpoint, but in every area, whether it's school, those who are unfortunately having kids at a young age or whatever it might be. But that's the opportunities or the circumstances being presented in front of them, they're just not being able to handle it. Why do you think so many men, young men are failing in today's culture? What is it that is causing so much failure? Is it a character issue? Is it pressure? What is it that you find is causing so many young men to fail in the opportunity that are being presented to them?
A lot of times they haven't been prepped and prepared for where they're going. Um,
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many kids I know who use the term famous. I want to be famous. So when I go to schools and I talk to kids, I tell them everything about the industry. Most of it blows them away because they think it's all glamour and
Mhm.
glitz. What they don't understand is that there are a lot of minefields out there. The enemy's job is to seek and destroy. Again, it's one of those things spiritually that I had under my belt that most kids don't. And it's one of those things that I share with
Mhm.
them. When you look at the kids who covet all of the materialistic stuff, they don't understand or they don't know what does it profit a man to gain the world and to lose his soul. So I come from a very spiritual place. Most of them don't have that under their belt. And so they're basically put out into the world, but they don't know that there's a whole nother world out there other than what they see.
Mhm.
Um, when we hear the thing of different things that we fight against in life, there's an evilness in Hollywood that most people aren't even prepared for. I wasn't even prepared for it. I had heard that it exists. I kind of knew that it existed, but it really wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles that I went, this right here is going to require a lot of praying and fasting for me to be able to exist out here. Um, Most people don't even know I walked away from a very accomplished career. I didn't walk away from it because I couldn't get work. I was working everywhere, man. I
Yeah.
walked away from it because my mental was more important to me than booking a film.
Mhm.
My spiritual life was more important to me than being a star or
Mhm.
getting any kind of the awards that come along with it. That hit me one day that something I was losing a lot of people around me that cared and that loved about that really loved me because I had gotten a little bit away from myself once upon a time.
Mhm.
And it don't take much to bring anybody back when you're dealing with it from a spiritual place. And when I say God broke me down all the way down, you know. And so a lot of the humbleness that you see was
Mhm.
nothing more than once upon a time that humbleness was ego
Mhm.
and it was overconfident and it was arrogance and you kind of forgot about where you come from. I don't mean
Mhm.
in terms of because I was never a materialistic person. Even to this day, I don't even own a watch, a ring, or nothing. I never did because the materialistic side never meant anything to me. I wasn't raised with with much, so I knew how not to have nothing. That was no big deal to me. But I kind of forgot who I was and where I came from once upon a time because I thought that this was something that was going to happen for the rest of my life. And that's the way it works. Sometimes you'll get on a roll and you're doing well and you forget all about that. It's more greater than who you are. Um, and then once those trials and tribulations come along, if you are not prayed up, brother,
You know what I mean? So,
and I got caught slipping
yeah.
because there was a time when I was always making sure I was always in the church. I never strayed away from it, but I did get away from the teachings for a
Mm,
while, and I did, as we all do when we go through certain things, we, you know, don't do it full steam the way we do other things. Some people say you ran harder for the devil than you did for the Lord. There was a
mm,
time when I did that, and I can be honest about that because that's just what it was.
yeah.
And I had to come back home. And
Mm,
sometimes in coming back home, it comes with a price.
mhm, mhm.
And,
Yeah.
so when that whole thing hit, I just went, you know something? I'm not going to lose faith this time because
Right.
I see, so when I talk to the kids,
Mm,
all they see is the glamour and the group. And I'm like, there's a whole nother game out there being played.
mhm,
And if you don't have on the whole armor,
mhm.
you will,
Be in trouble.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah.
No,
And it's
this is me opening up. This is
yeah.
not stuff that I just talk about with anybody because everybody's not in that place where you can talk about that stuff with them. But I know
Mhm.
that you know what I'm talking about. I know you
Exactly.
know what I'm saying. Yeah. Mm.
Exactly, sir. And in many ways, for many people, I think that will watch this, hear you, and hear me, this vindicates me in many ways in the basketball world. I think because I remember in 2010 walking away, and one would have thought, oh my God, you're going to have all these opportunities. You could keep going forward and being professional. And folks just seeing me sort of overnight, just dropping everything cold turkey. And they couldn't understand it. Like, how would you walk away from the money, like you're saying, the glamour and all of those things? It's because, like you mentioned, you get to the realization of something that I think many young men need to understand. There is a deeper purpose than all the asset that this world can offer you, right? That your life has a deeper value to it. And just like you said, what's the purpose? What is really it for a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? And we have many today after things that give them glamour in the world, but they're losing their soul and they're being left without anything. And they're
Mm.
pursuing the money, the stature, and that's why they're not in the homes. They're pursuing the money and the stature. That's why the families are broken up. That's why society is the mess that I believe it is in so many ways, because many men are not pursuing purpose and are not pursuing value anymore, but are simply pursuing things. And for me, coach, and I want to ask you about this. I don't know if it's a privilege I've had throughout my life or what it was, but I've always known the value of mentors. I've always known the value of people that can speak to you, and not just speak to you, but you giving them the privilege and the space where they can rebuke you and put you back in order. How necessary that is, in the basketball world. I had Coach Washington, I had, Martin Varencourt, who till this day I really call father in many ways. And then when I transitioned into the church, my spiritual father, Apostle Gideon Landu, people that you had and you allowed to show you the ropes
Hmm.
so you can become the better version of yourself. Can you speak in a couple minutes as we're getting to the end of our conversation, the importance of having those mentors? I know we talked about that village, but really the importance in that village of having people who can, as we say in the church, rebuke you, and where you could be humble enough to receive it knowing that that's for your good, that those are very important things to have if you're going to be a successful and an established man in today's society. The value of mentors. Could you speak to that? The need for that.
Having a mentor has probably been one of the most important things in my life. Uh, Bishop Parrott, Andrew Parrott, was my first spiritual mentor. And all through life, no matter where I was, no matter what I was doing, whenever things would go left, he would always be the first person that I would call because I had a trust in him and just a confidence in him that no matter what I was dealing with, he always had the right words, the right scripture, the right experience in life
Mm-hmm.
to share with me so that I could come on back home to where I needed to be. And so that was just one. The other person would have been, for me, would have been Clarence Big House Gaines, who was a very noted black coach at a HBCU school, Winston-Salem State. He was always available for me. But my greatest mentor would have been Esther Roll, who was the mother in Good Times.
Mm-hmm.
I met Esther in 1983. We did the River Niger together, and
Wow.
she became like my godmother. And she
Mm-hmm.
gave me probably the greatest advice that I ever received in this business when she said, "Don't ever compromise your integrity as a black man,"
Mm-hmm.
which is probably in the industry was the greatest advice I ever got. Because of that one thing, I was always approached with roles like being a pimp, being a drug dealer, um, even being, transvestite or whatever. Couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it because it fell in the line with don't ever compromise your integrity as a black man. And I stood on it. I still stand on it to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, having someone who's expert in a field and to be able to rely on their knowledge, oh man, it's huge. It's golden.
Mm-hmm.
It is golden. I mean, there are
Yeah.
a lot of people right now. Most people don't know. Every week, they have a free video studio and sound studio at the public library. I teach kids the art of doing voiceover and voice acting all the time.
Wow.
And that I know because when I was coming up, Richard
Mm-hmm.
Leonardi, who was the best voiceover teacher in the world, was charging $650 an hour to teach what I teach these kids for free. But it's
Great.
just knowledge that I have. I don't want to take this knowledge to my grave. I want to
Yeah.
pass it on to somebody. And so
Mm-hmm.
these young people are grasping it, man. And they're out there doing well. They're working. They're
Mm-hmm.
working, making a living doing voiceovers.
Doing voiceover. Wow.
Hmm.
And that's why, as a community, I know I speak for many people as we're coming to the end of today's conversation. We are so honored and privileged to have a man of your integrity and really of the character that you have. And I'm really hoping many of you who have been listening are hearing in the examples and in the wisdom that Coach Fred has been sharing, the qualities that build up and that make up a man. And I'm hoping that many of you are also hearing that it is not an overnight process, but that it takes time. It takes time. You have to choose to pursue something that is really greater than yourself. You have to understand the money will come, the money will go, the
It's driving
material
me crazy.
the material things will come and go, but truly there's a bigger purpose, and you have to give yourself a chance. And in that journey, have people who can hold you accountable, have people who can guide you, who can direct you, who can rebuke you, have those folks who can speak into your life. You need that village, you need those mentors that are available to move you forward. And Coach Fred, I just really, really want you to know, I know I tell you this in private, you are somebody that I admire a whole lot, just watching how you move. And I think that speaks volume as well of a man, is that it's not always in what they say, but it's in what they do. And just watching how you move, having watched you, how you interact with all of the people that we know mutually, watching how you interact with the work that you do, that integrity that you maintain. I just want you to know personally for myself, it's a great inspiration for me as a man to follow those very same footsteps of being that man of integrity. So know that You are very, very much valued in this world, and you are doing a great impact even for those that you may not be speaking to every day. And as a last question, sir, before we let you go, what advice or what last word would you give to young men watching us, to men who are watching us? What last words or what word of advice would you give them in this season? Because I truly believe that if this world will have any chance of getting better, that men need to regain their position and begin to stand in their position again if things in our society will get better. But giving you the last word, sir, what is a word that you would give or a parting word that you would give to our generation to do better as men?
Number one, I want our young men to have a greater level of love one for another. Um, and I think that's important. I see so many of these guys on the internet, everybody talking about beef. I got beef with this and I got beef with that. You know, that's nothing more to me than wasted energy. Take that energy and go to your brother in love, because at the end of the day, we are all, in some way or another, we are all representatives and ambassador of God. We are, whether we realize it or not. And we cannot, for any reason, if we can't go to our brother in love and resolve, then we are poor representatives of that. So that's one thing. The other thing would be who you are, be the best version of yourself. Surround yourself with great people, not good people. Surround yourself with great people, people who can share in your vision. And some you have to be very careful about who you share your vision with, because not everybody is for you. Um, but at the end of the day, as was always told to me as a child, keep God first. Just keep God first. Keep Him first.
Thank you.
And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Coach. It's a great privilege, a great honor. Thank you. I know you have a very busy schedule. We've come toward the end. Coach, I just want to say a big thank you. Thank you for all the word of wisdom.
Thank you for having me, my brother. Thank you for having
Long overdue. I've told you, I've been hunting you.
me. Yes, you have. You have. You really have.
So I'm really honored, sir, that you gave me the time, and I bid you a great evening, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good, Treasure. Keep me in your prayers, my brother.
Will
And
do,
I'll do
sir.
the same with you.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. All righty.
Good night.
Thank you.
Wow. There's some conversations you have, you could just keep going. You could really just keep going because of the wealth of knowledge that is being provided. I am hoping a young man who has watched this, a man who's watched this, looking at their life, that you understand the value that you have as a man, and that you uh, begin to live a life of purpose, that you begin to live a life that is honed on integrity, that you begin to live a life that has some boundaries in it, that you begin to live a life that has some values, that has some guidelines that are based on a certain principle. As I was saying just a couple minutes ago, I believe in today's society and all the changes that we are doing and all the evolution that we are experiencing in today's society, that it is important for men to play the role. It's important in the family. It is important in our society. It is important in every facet of our world. If things will get better, man, you need to do better. And I believe that we can. And I believe that we will. So I hope today's conversation has brought some inspiration. I hope today's conversation has challenged some of us to step out, step forward, and to get back in the position that we need to be. Once again, it's been your host, Treasure Kalambe. Always a privilege and an honor to have you all joining us on this platform. Don't miss next week's conversation, another wonderful conversation that we will have that I know will be a blessing to you. Until then, stay blessed, stay highly favored. I will see you next week. Take care.